5-0. I'll second what you just said, Steve. Thank you, Rum River BMX.
But it would be nice if they did, if you, I mean, you guys gotta put in your bids for a lot of these things. It'd be just nice if you came up with, you know, keep you from having to come in here so often. Well-
We have told them they don't need to come for their special event permits. They just like hanging out with us, I think.
Well, I get it, but I just as soon give them all their good thumbs up as all at once, rather, makes their life easier too.
All right, so K9, resolution to consider approving a conditional use permit to allow for automotive restyling.
Precision Window Tint applied for a conditional use permit to allow automotive restyling at 22 Broadway Street Southwest. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on March 18th on the proposed conditional use permit and recommended approval. The Isani City Council approved a zoning text amendment in January to allow for this use as a conditional use within the district, and the findings of fact and all of the requirements have been met for this conditional use permit are included in the packet.
What a process this has been for this.
Yep,
This has been like
so-
6 months on this.
So let's get them over
Is this
with.
it?
Motion to approve.
This is the last one that we're
Second.
gonna have to do?
Yes.
Oh, woo. All right, motion by Councilmember Lundin, second by Councilmember Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I will let them know they're done, too. All right, K10, resolution to consider supporting the retention of city zoning authority.
Good evening again. I did provide this in the admin update previously, but the Senate and Local Government Committee and the House Elections, Finance, and Government Operations are considering 8 bills that will significantly restrict city zoning and land use authority from requiring the city to potentially allow much more dense housing in certain areas on any vacant lot that's zoned residential within the city, as well as any commercial district within the city, which could impact, not only limit our decision-making on land use and zoning, but impose rigid state mandates on cities, force higher density development, and also eliminate our ability to require minimum parking standards. It'll also have a huge impact on our infrastructure and our ability to have enough water, et cetera. So just, this shows our opposition for it. Many cities have already opposed, and they were supposed to have a hearing on this on the 25th, which they canceled, and I haven't seen any further updates from that yet.
So you're saying we want to do this retention? It's the way I gather it.
What's that?
We want to do this retention? So-
No, so,
Well, to me, when you're saying
Yes.
retention, it's keeping
We
what it
do.
is.
We want to retain city zoning authority.
Well, then,
so it's preemption by the state. What the state's trying to do is, they're not trying to restrict us, they're trying to dictate what we do with our property, and they have no business doing that. That's way over their reach, and I hope the Senate and the House just laugh at these, because, you know, every city would be required to have the same standards, and that doesn't work. You know, how can you make a law for down in the metro when you're in the suburban? It doesn't work at all, and you're gonna have huge issues that are not being thought out at all by whoever presented these laughable bills, so,
don't disagree, so.
yeah.
There's
I
definitely.
want to keep it the way we got it.
Yes.
So we're gonna write the resolution, basically mimicking what the LMC had sent out, I assume, and I was good with the language. I know the county commissioners, I had talked to them, and they are hoping that they can get resolutions from everybody, so they have, you know, a little bit of a stick behind theirs as well, because it's laughable. I don't even know how it made it to the floor at all.
I don't either. The state can't be dictating one size fits all. I mean, that's what local communities are about. That's why our state is broke up in counties and cities. I mean, you can't be dictating.
I do want to add that I did remove some of the language at the end of the original resolution that they gave to us that said that we would like to partner with the state to come up with new ways for zoning. And I just said we don't want them to have any more control over our zoning at all. So
We want
just
nothing to
letting
do
you
with
know
them.
that I didn't
Perfect.
completely follow the format, but I just wanted it to be as is at this moment.
I like that change.
So,
So we need a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve.
Oh, that was quick.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Peterson, second by Councilmember Holmgren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. K11, resolution to consider approving hiring bonus for police officer retention.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, on the
COW meeting on March 18th, we brought up where we are in our hiring process, and it was council's recommendation to look into the hiring bonuses. Ms. Grotti and myself looked at some of the postings and what was out there and came up with this proposal for the resolution, which is $3,000 for less than 1 year experience and the $6,000 for lateral with over 1 year. 1/3 would be paid out at the completion of the field training process, which would be somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks, depending on lateral versus new. And the other 2/3 would be after 1 year. Yeah, so that's what we brought back at your recommendation. That's what we came up with. We looked at the highest ones we've seen is $20,000. That's kind of the outlier. There's some higher ones in the $10,000 mark, and then there's some that are lower. But that was kind of the one that was the starting point. Yep.
Would it be possible, I know you broke it down versus under a year and over a year, but, one could argue that someone with a year and 1 month experience isn't more experienced as someone with 11 months. Could we break it down further and say, $3,000 for 1 year or less, and then say $4,500 in the middle for 3 years or less, and then anything over that's the full $6,000? Would that be a potential?
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
But I would say that 1 year and 1 month, or 1 year and 1 day is extremely more valuable than 0 days and
Oh, right,
zero.
right.
I mean, because they've already gone through a field training program,
Right.
and they've successfully completed that and are employed for that year. Now, it'd be different if they went and worked for a year and didn't make it, then it wouldn't work in that process. They have to be currently employed as a police officer for over a year at that time.
I'm fine with this.
Can we have language put in here that this resolution needs to be resubmitted every 2 years because the market changes?
Mayor and council, what we did with this resolution is that it's effective for this job posting, this hiring
Oh, it's just,
exclusively.
just this,
Yep.
oh?
Yeah.
That's the way that
Yeah,
this is
generally,
written.
that's the way most of those are. They don't, when somebody's offering you an incentive to come work there, it's generally for that job posting, because it can change, and they can raise it, they can lower it, they can do away with it.
Hopefully, we don't have another position open, but if we did, we would bring this back to council and ask the same question again.
Sounds great. That was my only concern about it, otherwise I like it as is.
I make a
or with
Would you
the
guys be
changes
okay
Luke
with the
mentioned.
135?
No, I think this is just fine. I think this is gonna do just fine. You got a guy that's 3 years, he's just as well seasoned as.
Oh, right, so I think he should be paid more if you have more
Yeah,
experience.
but it's gonna be, so he's still gonna get he's still
Well,
gonna.
mayor and council, they would, if they have, say, 10 years on, they're gonna come at a higher pay rate
Right,
to start with.
right, and a higher signing bonus. I think we should break it down into, the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year for 3,000, 4,500, and 6,000
I think you're gonna make it
myself.
too concluded, and it's gonna go all over in different directions. I think you're better off just leaving it as simple as it is. Generally, most hiring bonuses are flat, and that's it. It's not for this, and it's not for that, it's flat out.
Were you okay with those changes, chief?
I mean, I don't mind but the marketing side would be the only concern, just, looking at, to be consistent with every other one that's out there that's offering some bonus. I mean, that is consistent at the year mark.
Okay, fair enough.
I make a motion to approve it as is.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lundin, second by Councilmember Holmgren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I hope you get that position filled ASAP, so. K-12, financial services request for proposal discussion.
Thank you. So Mayor and Council, as we had our abrupt vacancy of our finance director position, staff had reached out to Abdo for interim financial services. This was approved somewhat temporary at our last city council meeting on March 18th. I've started drafting the RFP. I'm about halfway done. What I wanted to bring to council is to verify after I've looked at the timeline and make sure that this is still the direction of the council. As you look at the dates, the contract would potentially begin in July. I'm hoping to have a finance director in place by July 7th. And it does take a lot of, not just time, but money as we post the RFP and go through the vetting out process. And I just want to ensure that this is the direction that council wants to go, is to move forward with the RFP, or should we reconsider, continue on with Abdo? I think currently, we're 1 week into that contract. It's gone very well. Staff has taken on a lot, myself has taken on a lot, so we're not passing on very much to Abdo at this time. But open for the direction of the council.
So I had a question on this. Could this be, maybe I used the RFP word, maybe I should have used bid the last time, because I was just expecting we'd send out a request for a bid, and they would give us their hourly price, and that's what we would go by. I wasn't expecting a 6-month drawn-out, political bureaucratic mess.
So the RFP process is pretty lengthy in and of itself. One thing that takes a considerable amount of time, which is what I've been spending a lot of time on this past week, is the scope of services. It has to be very detailed to ensure that whatever institution, firm, what have you, that does submit a quote or proposal for it can meet everything adequately. So it's got to be comprehensive to ensure that I can vet out that they can actually do the services that we need.
I personally think we should just stay with Adobe and be done with it.
It's just so much money. It's
It-
4
it's-
times what we were paying before.
It isn't, it isn't. It isn't, it isn't. By the time you paid our previous finance director, you're paying that for their service, even though they're doing less, but they're also the ones that do our audit. So they're gonna do it in a lot better shape, and I think we're a lot better off staying right where we're at. And if we're gonna fill this thing within a few months, we're gonna spend more time chasing down a rabbit hole than we are just leaving where it's at.
Have there been any applicants yet? Or is that open?
It is, the current finance director position is posted, it's open, we're accepting applications until April 30th. I'm not aware that we have any yet.
So if we don't get any, could we re-examine this at that point? Because I'm worried we're not gonna fill this position for 2, 3, 4 years. What if we don't, and then we're paying $3,900 a week for 10 hours of service a week? And that's not gonna work for our budget for the next 2 years, if,
That's not gonna work for our staff either.
All right,
So they're
right.
gonna wanna fill this sooner or later. We may end up having to do a hiring bonus under that to make it happen too.
Sure.
as if-
Yeah,
But
looking at
it's,
this.
but everybody you don't, unless you're actively searching for a specific job, you're not gonna know that that job is available. However they're posting it, they may not see it until the last minute.
Sure.
So I think we should just stay where we're at and let's see what happens, and if something doesn't happen by that deadline of the applicants, let's revisit. Let's look at maybe doing a hiring bonus on it. Something to push it on sooner, because the staff is not gonna be able to eat all this time.
Right,
No matter,
absolutely.
and if we hired somebody else, we're gonna do the same, it's gonna be the same thing. So I think we're better off just staying right where we're at right now. Let's revisit this after that posting is closed and see what our applicants are at that point.
sounds good. Is that something that we could just do a simple bid process if that comes rather than RFP?
So because it is a professional service, we're not required to do an RFP, but again, I'm not sure how you would go out and seek quotes.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a bidding process, but it'd be quotes. If you don't have the scope of services for them to say, yes, I can meet all these benchmarks. I just completed drafting the RFP for depository and banking services. That'll be on our next city council agenda. I think it's 8 pages. So it's pretty lengthy, making sure that I have everything detailed out for people to send in so we can vet everybody out.
Okay.
Well, my motion is let's just stay with what we're doing. Let's see what happens when the applications are closed, and then let's address it at that point. That's my motion.
April 30th, right around.
Well, that's, when is it closed,
April
Ms. Wood?
30.
Mayor and council, if we do want to ask the city attorney, we can ask for his expertise on whether we not do an RFP, since we haven't gone through that before,
Sure.
if we'd like.
here.
Definitely.
He's here.
Yes, thank you.
So, Mayor and Council, because the professional services are not subject to the bid law at all, so, and they're never done by bid, they're never done by quote. The RFP process is very common. It isn't required. I mean, you guys can go out and just literally call up some firm and retain them under contract immediately if you want to. But it is very common to use the RFP process just to flesh out the experience of these different firms. There are certainly a number of them in this state that provide public financing system. Abdo is one of the big ones, but they're certainly not the only one. But yeah, either way you want to do it is perfectly legitimate. It's just whatever you're comfortable with, RFP or direct contract. That's your choice.
Okay,
So you said April 30th is when that closing,
Correct.
So let's just bring it back first council meeting in May and see where we're at on this.
And if there's no hires, maybe we just make a couple phone calls. How much would you charge roughly, you know? Okay,
You're gonna probably wanna have a full-time finance director. So at
Right,
that point, we
obviously.
may wanna address a hiring bonus on that as well.
okay. That sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you make a motion on that?
Yes, I did.
Was there a second? I don't think there was.
Can I ask a quick question? What does this market look like? Do you have a feel for how long you think it may take to find another finance director? I have no clue. Could it be 2 years like Luke's saying, or could it be 2 months?
It's a difficult question to answer. We did intentionally leave the application process open longer than we would some positions, given my experience previously with this position being open. When we hired Michael Becker, he was done through a recruiting firm because the city of Isani did struggle finding a permanent full-time finance director that met the qualifications and lasted. We had gone through a couple of them, used interim services as well during that time to fill the void. So it's hard to say. I think that a lot of positions are challenging to recruit for, so I'm hopeful.
Do you remember how long that position was open before we got Mike?
It really wasn't that long. She wasn't,
I was here.
were you here then? Yeah.
So we had we had our finance director who had been here for a number of years. I think, I want to say probably 4 years or so, maybe 3 years, 3 months, I feel like was in there. We had 2 people after her that were very short, less than their 6-month probation. I think one was only maybe 2.5 months. And then we used interim finance services to fill the gap as we went out for the recruiting firm. And it was a number of months, but maybe if I had to guess, I could look it up for sure, but maybe around that 4 months or so as the recruiting process went through its whole start to finish process.
I can tell you, I have some finance background at school, and people really didn't want to go into into the government type stuff. They want to go for the fun, business type stuff. It's kind of a niche market, and it's gonna be hard to fill.
But that's where we could go back to the same thing when we found Mr. Becker, because I know for a fact that Mr. Becker had recruiting services calling him while he was here. So let's push this till May 1st meeting. Let's discuss it at that point. And if we decide to, maybe in this time, that Ms. Wood can look into what it's gonna cost to do recruitment service and see if we can fine tune some of that if we do not get any answers by then. I don't think that's asking too much at this point. I don't want to tax them back there any more than they already have.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second or any further discussion?
I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Go for it.
So how much time do you have into the RFP so far?
I'd say approximately 6 hours.
Okay, how long would it take you to complete it?
I would estimate about 5.
Okay.
And I would argue that, or I would state also that it'd be a lengthier process when I get the proposals in to vet them out.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll second the motion.
All right, motion by Councilmember Lundin, second by Councilmember Holmgren. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Hopefully we get some applicants, if anybody knows anybody. So, yes, so we have the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion approved by Councilmember Lundin, second by Councilmember Heeman to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now we will go into closed session under Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3B for consideration of actions available to acquire easements for the Heritage Intersection Improvement Project.